First, God realized it had immense power, superpower that we couldn't understand. So out of that came the sun, with the sun just burning super huge in space, hanging out. God had to find something to reflect off of, to bounce back, to give it a spot, because just one thing was just one thing with nothing else around it. A big ball orb. I mean, at first when people say the cosmos blew out in a million seconds, it was because, I can't explain, like, time was non-existent. So it all happened as fast as it wanted to, and we only started keeping time when we understood how to keep time, or figured out a way to measure something, to measure the distance between two things. And with there only being a sun, which started as a little speck but then blew out to, however big the sun stopped, and he realized that that's not what he needs to do. He needs to have something to bounce back off, to let him know that there's another place to go to. So then as that was there, played around, and he thought some bigger orbs, like the super, I don't even know what they're called, but the super gargantuan stars that are bigger than the moon, or bigger than the sun, I'm sorry. And the moon, of course, are bigger than the moon, they're bigger than the sun. But like things that dwarf the Earth and make the Earth look tiny. Or is it that I'm thinking the Earth is the tiny thing and the sun is the biggest? I don't know, but I've heard there's stars out there that make the sun look like it's tiny. But that's because the sun is where he started, and he realized that that wasn't what ultimate power was, so he tried to make bigger ones, and it wasn't ultimate power, and then he tried to make bigger ones, and it wasn't ultimate power, and tried to make ones that were like planets that had something on it, and something else that made a planet that had something on it, and something else had a planet that had something on it. And they all have their own form of quote-unquote life, but the dirt that's there and the rocks that are there are some sort of essence of spirit. Whether we get it or not, there is life on other places, just not living life with heartbeats, maybe. But maybe there is heartbeats. I think there is, honestly. But those answers aren't really that important. What we need to know right now is what made us, how we're here. So we went from having just a big floating circle in the sky that needed something to be able to tell it was there. So it put the moon out there to reflect it. And then after the moon, it created all kinds of little stars and little galaxies and little things like that to try to test its power, but still really couldn't experience anything, because all there was is like movement and, maybe hemispheres and atmospheres and stratospheres and bibliospheres and shabalaboofospheres, or like whatever you would call it, things that we don't understand in that kind of sense, like the cycle of a nature system, the cycle of how we have wind and water and fire and stuff like that. And another kind of nature ecosystem or galaxy ecosystem, there could be things we don't understand, like backwards air and backwards gravity and just all kinds of weird things that we don't understand. So after the moon and the stars and all the big galaxies, then he started with things like water and elements. And as he started messing around with water, I don't know how to say it in words, messing around with seeing what he could create, more and more ideas came, more and more things happened, animals, dinosaurs, big powerful things. And then he realized, things don't need to be too tall, things don't need to be too small. He tried everything from this to that, and with his energy of creating life and source and motion and like soul, spirit, and then he came with spirit with all those dinosaurs and all those things, and then he came up with the brain, which was like the computer that whatever, and that's why we people created computers, because we're sort of like a computer, but a biological, spiritual mass of atoms formed into skin, bones, computer. It's pretty crazy. I'm walking and talking and walking around at work, but I want to save this because this sort of came to me, and I can't put it all into words, but it's actually really, really cool.